Hello, everyone. My name is Idowu, but everyone calls me ID. So let's get on to the next episode. This should be S1E4, Season 1, Episode 4. Today we'll discuss something that I call the startup risk stack. Okay, just follow me. Hopefully, this should be a very interesting conversation. Background: I've discovered that the way founders, especially founders at the very earliest stage of startup development, the idea stage, okay, the way they see themselves is night and day, diametrically opposed, right, as the sun and moon, to the way other people in the startup ecosystem, especially investors, the attention of whom they are courting, see them. So just to provide some visual aid that supports the arguments I'm making. If you think about how to build a startup, right? First of all, let's take a quick detour. I hope that this is not going to be cognitive. I'm going to have a cognitive cost. Let's take a quick detour and talk about the stages of startup, okay, the stages of building startups. In the startup ecosystem, in the world of startups, there's a lot of vagueness and ambiguity around the stages through which a startup progresses, as it grows. There are terms typically like pre-seed, seed, early stage, later stage, growth stage, all sorts of terms that are just bandied all over the place. And again, this is another thing, right? Many times you see through the course of these series that we will try to help people pinpoint exactly what many of these terms actually mean. The reason is that many times people who are rookies or are newly acquainted with the startup ecosystem, startup space, the startup world, for instance, hear these terms and they just form unconscious assumptions about what those terms mean. Remember how we discussed that a startup is not a company that is just starting up, okay? Many times people hear early stage and there's a notion in their minds, but that notion, you discover 3 years later that there hasn't been a specific point in time where that notion of exactly what early stage means, exactly what pre-seed stage means, exactly what MVP means, exactly what traction means, exactly what this means or that means, and so on and so forth. So it's important to think about the stages that a startup passes through, okay? And I have mapped out these stages. Obviously, do I think that this will be updated in maybe 3-5 years from now? Definitely yes. So again, let's think of this as an experiment. Let's think of this as a prototype, as an iteration that can be improved upon. But as of today, I think that this is a good working definition for each of those stages, right, that a startup progresses through as it grows, as it matures. So number one, there's the idea stage, okay? There's the idea stage, and in this stage, the only job that a startup has, that startup founders have when they are still in this stage, is customer validation, okay? There's the prototype stage, there's the MVP stage, there's the seed stage, series stage, and then exit stage. Prototype stage is that stage where the founders have gone beyond just an idea. They have created something that is a lookalike, even if not a functional lookalike, but at least a lookalike that simulates or imitates, what that final functional product will look like in the future. For hardware startups, for instance, people typically say, so I have these friends, right, who are building a startup for the beverage industry. It's a hardware startup. It's a hardware product, right? But they've gone to China to build a prototype. I think they have just 2 or 3 prototypes that they built from China. It's not working, but it has all the look and feel. It has a tactile feedback. It has the look and feel of the final product, right? It doesn't have all the circuitry and electricity and all of that, circuitry that will make it work like the final product. So it's not fully functional, but it's an imitation of that final future final product. Okay, so that's a prototype. The prototype is, and in software, now I deliberately use the hardware one first so that we'll get that out of the way. But in software terms, nowadays, something called a UX UI design is actually what we mean by prototype, right? And I'm sure almost everyone who's listening to or who's watching this video has heard about, that fantastic tool called Figma or Canva, which are tools by which UX designers, software teams are able to help stakeholders visualize what the product will look like before you start building the product. So you help people visualize the product. You do the design, the interface, and you design the product visually, visual layouts. Sometimes you even imitate functional interactions on that visual layout. So there's a button, you click it, it loads another page, right? But actually, it's not working fully. It's just moving to another page that looks like, it's working. So that's a prototype. A UX UI design is a good enough prototype. So many times I tell founders in the idea stage, if you are still on the idea stage, get out of there as soon as possible and get to the prototype stage. The MVP stage is that stage where you take that thing that is in the prototype, hopefully that iteration of it that your customers have expressed to you that they absolutely cannot live without, and you go and build it, okay, so that they love it. And then you can get to the seed stage. The seed stage is the stage where you monetize the technically working MVP. So the only difference between MVP and seed is that seed is where you monetize the MVP, okay? The series is where you capitalize on the gains of the seed and, go to market and capture market share. So you are no longer in the seed, you are worrying about, can we monetize? Should we monetize like this or like this or like that? By the time you're in series, you've found your own repeatable and scalable business model. So you are scaling. Okay, so series is about scaling, and then exit is about profitability and returning money to your investors. Yeah. So having said this, please permit me to go back to that previous slide. Okay. Having said this, I went through all of that explanation to give us a context for the definitions of these colored column titles. So you see the red here stands for the idea stage, and that means the contents of this column, these are the associated risks that investors see when they see someone in the idea stage. When they see a startup or startup founders, or a startup, technically speaking, a startup that is still in the idea stage. In fact, if I tell you how grandiose, how, the kinds of opinions I have seen that idea stage founders have of themselves, many times I just really, really have to try and be as polite as possible to help them see that you see yourself differently from the way investors see you, right? Investors see you as a bag of risks. You are actually a bag of risks. And I'm jumping the gun here, and I'll come back, but actually, there is a reason why a startup in Series C will easily raise 150 million naira, $150 million, right? $150 million is not strange for Series C. That's fine. People have raised far more than that for Series C. So that is not a strange figure. But these founders in idea stage will struggle to raise 25K, maybe 50K, maybe 100K, almost unbelievable. So 25K, 50K, they will struggle to raise it. Because in the idea stage, the idea stage is the riskiest stage to be on along the startup journey. Is the riskiest milestone to be on the startup journey. So even if the only thing you can do is to get yourself out of this idea stage, at least you are not the riskiest stage. Okay, so I always encourage founders, the only job you have in the world, whenever you are in the idea stage, is to make your way out of the idea stage. How do you do that? Do a lot of customer validation exercises, okay? Ensure you get customer fit. Do a lot of customer validation exercises. We'll talk about that later in subsequent sessions, but customer development is that official name for the set of activities that are carried out in order to achieve customer fit, okay, or customer validation. So there's also a color code in here, the red stage for the red risk, okay, and the orange stage for the 3 orange risks, the yellow stage for the 3 yellow risks, the green stage for the 2 green risks, blue and purple. So essentially, what I'm trying to communicate with this is, as you journey, as you make progress, as your startup matures, if you are hitting the right milestones for each of these stages, then you become more and more attractive to investors, okay? Because your risk profile reduces, which is why there is a huge concentration of investors on seed and beyond. Because at the stage of seed, you have taken care of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 12. That's more than 50%. That's about 60-something%. By the time you are at seed, by the time you are starting out at seed, you are already 60-something%. What's the word? You've eliminated or at least addressed or mitigated 60-something% of the risks that are typically associated with startups. So they like that. Okay, there's assurance of monetization. Okay, which I expressed at revenue and so on and so forth. Having said that, let me just go through these things, quickly, and then we can call it a day. So, the idea stage is that stage where all you have is an idea, and so you are trying to get as much validation for this idea as possible. So, customer validation is the only task you have in the world. I have come across a lot of founders who are in idea stage and have not completed customer validation, have not, achieved customer validation to a satisfactory degree, but they are worrying about scale. They are really, really worrying about scale. They're worrying about Series A, Series B activities. And I always use this example for this. I always say that, imagine you were in 100 level or year 1. In Nigeria, we call freshman year 100 level. Imagine you were in year 1 of university, freshman year, and you were probably enrolled in an engineering course, some kind of engineering course, okay, electrical, petroleum, mechanical, industrial, any of the major engineering disciplines. And your elder brother also has passed through the same school and is at, say, year 4, okay, senior year. Imagine that you have an upcoming exam for your year 1 exam, your freshman exams, your freshman year exams, right? But instead of mastering the curriculum for year 1, okay, you as a freshman year 1 student are obsessing and worrying and spending all the energy you have in the world, worrying about the contents of your brother's year 4 senior year curriculum. That is exactly, I think that that's a good illustration to make my point. I have seen this scenario play out many times, and I sometimes have to help founders realize that, hey, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. I get it. These questions are important, but they're not important right now. Okay? You are still a long way off from worrying about scale. You are a long way off from worrying about product market fit. Okay? You should actually be worrying about customer validation and maybe problem solution fit, which is the next stage anyway. So pay attention to the things that are relevant for your stage. The expectations of the industry and the investor space for a startup that is in your stage. So if you're in the idea stage, like I said, the only job you have in the world is customer validation. And if you focus on it well enough and do a fantastic job, a great job with customer validation, it will actually serve as a great foundation for success in all the other stages. You won't have to come back and do some things that some other people have to, And when you move, so that's idea stage. When you progress to prototype stage, again, like I said, prototype stage is UX, UI design and or prototype model design if it's hardware. You have a couple of things to achieve, okay? You want to make sure that you create a usable product, UX, aka Figma, aka Canva, right? Problem solution fit. You want to make sure that you have an iteration of a solution that solves the problem that you identified in the idea stage. Okay. Number 3, business viability. You want to use tools like the business model canvas to establish at the very high level, without wasting too much resources, whether or not there is a potential business behind this idea. Okay. And you want to use that to demonstrate to investors and other stakeholders that, hey, this is really, really good business viability. Okay. So idea stage, prototype stage. Say you do well with the prototype stage and you move to the MVP stage. At the MVP stage, you have a couple of other worries to think about, or a couple of other things to worry about. Okay, chief of them being something called co-founder fit. Okay, so the first 2 risks there, co-founder fit and team market fit, are team related. Okay, MVP is actually more about team than about the product, but it's okay. We'll talk about that later. So co-founder fit is, co-founder conflict is the second most rampant killer of small businesses, startups worldwide. So please pay attention to co-founder fit, team market fit, and then whether or not the available technology for today is mature enough to support the development and delivery of the solution that you are proposing. So those are the expectations of the MVP stage. In the seed stage, perhaps I should rename this to monetization, not revenue, but for now, let's use the word revenue. In the seed stage, your job is to take a functioning MVP, a functioning technical product that users are loving. Okay, they love its technical features and they can't do a day without it. That kind of product, take it and turn it to money. Test various revenue models, research into the psychography of your buyer personas, of your customer personas, and find out what kind of revenue model will work for them, and deploy that revenue model. You also start to worry about product market fit here in the seed stage. Product market fit is that momentum that you generate in the early adopter section of your market that helps you capture the rest of the market. Series stage, revenue at scale, technology at scale, and then last stage, profitability. So it's usually useful to think about building a startup in terms of these stages, because it just simplifies the things you have to worry about. Okay, and I think I couldn't say this too many times, right? Too many a time. I've seen a lot of founders who the most rampant mistake, the most common mistake they are making is that they are worrying about 400 level of stage 4 risks and stage 4 activities and stage 4 expectations when they have not delivered on stage 1 expectations where they are. So you really, this kind of gives you a mental map for how to achieve that. Well, thank you very much. As I always say, thank you for tolerating my hallucinations. I hope this has been a bit useful to you. Let me know in the comments box. See you in the next one. Thank you.